Unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is, I call it a silent killer. Unforgiveness can have you stuck in a place to where you don't know that you need to forgive other people or even yourself. I'm going to talk about parents. And I know this is a hard subject for a lot of people when it's pertaining to their parents. And a lot of times you go through life, and I meet people all the time, they are like the things that has happened in their life have made them so hateful, so bitter, and they're like, I can never forgive this person, I can never do that or whatever for what they done. But look at you. It has taken you and stripped you of everything who you used to be, and now you are something else, and you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. If nobody else telling you, I'm telling you. There are things in life that happens. I see people, whether it be parents, it be children, it be people, because a lot of this is generational. You have to understand a lot of things are generational, and that's why you have to actually be like, you know what, I'm going to stop. And you got to come to the realization about things, even when it comes to your parents. Just like me, I grew up in a generation to where my parents were boomers. I grew up in a generation to where feelings and emotions, nothing. I didn't even know like what a hug or anything is. And no, I don't want people to be like, oh, whatever it is, what it is. I mean, it made me who I am today. And a lot of people did not understand, like, because I'm the type of person, I don't like to be touched. I don't really, unless, I give my permission. I don't like people touching me. Because especially like if you have never been hugged or anything, to me it feels uncomfortable and it feels like you're smothering me, and I don't like people doing that. So it's like I have to initiate it, or actually be like, is it okay, or anything. I have to get myself ready, what I'm saying, for. And a lot of times people don't understand that. They think you're being standoffish or whatever. But also, again, I don't let everybody hug me, everybody touch me, and it's for a lot of reasons other than that as well. But with that being said, is that you have to get to a place of understanding, like, even when you bring up things and your parents just don't want to talk about, like, and they say like, oh, it didn't happen or whatever. You got to get to a place. And I didn't realize that until I came to the Lord, when the Lord showed me that I had unforgiveness in me. And and to deal with it on several things. It was dealing with the rape, dealing with my father and stuff like that. And so he was showing me these things that I needed to work on. And because it kept me in constant state of my system was shocked, literally fried. I was always like on the edge, always like paranoid. And these people didn't pay for it. I did. I was. Because I was in pain. I was in despair. I mean, I don't know the word, like despair and everything. But as God started working on me, I began to realize that my parents are who they are. They're not going to change. They're older now. They're not going to change. And I have to come to the realization about that. Now, with that being said, I have to also come to the realization that a lot of times you have to cut things off because people do not want to get to the root of the issues. And if you're that type of person who loves like the truth about things, and then you are surrounded by people who are not of truth, you know how important it is for you to find things, to find out the truth. And even if you don't look for it, you're going to find it. It's just the way how it is. It's going to come out. And it's better that person tell you, or that people, than you finding out on your own, because it makes it worse, because they were hiding it. That's what people don't understand. Now, with that being said, is that for your mental health, and I'm talking about people like things happen and all this kind of stuff. I'm not talking about because you and your parents don't get along. That's a whole nother subject in itself. Okay, that's not the same thing. But where deep pain, trauma, like whatever happened, you have to realize they are who they are. Forgive them, because it's not for them, it's for you. And therefore you can start living a life worth living. And those are the words I hear: a life worth living, because you have been existing and not living. And a lot of you have been in dysfunction for years, like I was. It was decades for me, and I was dealing with multiple issues, and that was one as well. So with that being said, is that when God starts showing me things, even about myself, and to release it from him, it was not an easy process. It was actually hard. It was the most hurtful thing and close to being traumatic thing that I had to deal with, because I had to relive things, in order to heal. And I have a testimony, actually a couple, about that, because at the time I was married, but that's not the point of this as well. But there'll be times when people don't understand your process. They don't understand what you're going through, because there'll be people even in your life would tell you to let it go, because the past is the past and all that. But they're not the one who's hurting. You are, okay? With that being said, is that you have to come to the realization that they are who they are, and accept it and love them from that. And I had to come to deal with it, and now it's taking me like all that. It took probably about a couple of years, you know what I'm saying? And I don't hate my parents, you know what I'm saying? I love them, because they are my parents. If it was not for them, I would not be here. There were a lot of things would not be here if it was not for my parents. In the same way for you, you need to understand that if the things in life did not happen and all this kind of stuff, you wouldn't be who you are today. And I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, this, I understand that. But if you are willing to listen and you want to heal, then listen. But if you don't, you can keep on going and live the rest of your days and go to your grave that way. Because I've known a lot of people over my lifetime has done that. And to me, I was like, enough's enough. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to deal with everything so I will live a life of purpose, a life worth living, instead of a life living in hell. Okay, constant hell. Now, with that being said, is that you have to release that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about forgetting, because you will never forget. But forgive these people and go on. And yes, you do have to go no contact with people who have constantly hurt you, and they know they have, and refuse to change, and don't want to tell you, and don't want to acknowledge anything. This is what I'm talking about. Now, with that being said, is that if you have a parent that is willing to talk to you about situations or whatever, and you don't want to talk, you are the issue. Because for one, they are trying to talk. I'm not saying dismiss anything. They are willing to give you a chance to talk, and it's like, okay, what's done is done. I'm not going to do it, because there are people literally out there like that now. You are talking about there are issues with your parents, but yet you're not willing to settle it. You don't want to talk to them because they're trying to talk to you, and you don't want to talk about it. And you're always like throwing up stuff. And I'm not talking about throwing up like whatever, but it's like, and I've noticed this with a lot of people who don't want to face anything. And this is where I don't believe in your truth. I believe in the truth, because if you speak it from a place of hurt and not really understand, things could be distorted. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I had to stand back, even in my situation, and just look and realize a lot of stuff. Because if I would have started speaking well before time, I would have been speaking stuff that were coming from hurt, pain, and possibly would have come up with some stuff that, you know what I'm saying, that didn't have. You get what I'm saying? So you have to really, because of what people don't understand, when you speak from a place of hurt and pain, you can possibly speak on things that did not happen. Now, I'm not saying you did that on purpose. I'm just saying, because you are so hurt, you just want justice. You just want vengeance. You want these people even to pay, or even to admit. You don't even realize at that moment what you're doing, because you want it to be known. So that's why it's best for you to work on this, your heart. If you don't want to listen, fine. You don't have to. You can go on ahead. But this ain't about blaming you or blaming anything. I'm just trying to tell you something for your own spiritual well-being, because you're the one who's hurting. You're the one who's in pain. A lot of these people are not. Now, some of them are now, but they will never tell you. But if a person is willing to talk to you, talk to them, and you both have to be willing, and all of y'all have to be willing to understand and listen to each other and get to the root of the issue of why the problems exist in your relationships in the first way. That's it. And once you begin to get to the root and address the situation in y'all relationship as mother, child, even it could extend from all the husband, wife, children, to even their kids, like whatever. Like, you get what I'm saying? Because you got to understand, if you don't break the cycle, it even goes on to your own children as well, whether you realize it or not. And that's why I talk to people about this, because if you don't break it and you refuse to actually face it, your children are going to have to deal with the same cycles of abuse that you did as well, of you rejecting the truth even about yourself.